But welcome to you all. Thank you for coming to tonight's Grow With Us parenting webinar, which is organised by Only About Children. I'm going to be your facilitator tonight, and my name is Nellie. We have 30 minutes this evening, or my presentation should be about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a little bit of time for your questions. Please add any questions that you have to the chat as they come up for you, and I'll respond to those at the end of the presentation. But thank you all again for being here. And I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on where we're all joining from this evening. I'm on Dharawal land in the Wollongong area. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining tonight. As I said, my name is Nellie Hodda. I'm an early childhood teacher who has spent the past 15 years working closely with babies and toddlers and their families in early education settings as a nanny and also through parent-infant guidance classes. I'm also a RI associate, which means that I have training in Magda Gerber's Educaring approach. I've also completed training in some training in the Pickler approach and Circle of Security. And tonight we're going to spend a little time thinking about emotional development in the first year of life and what you can do to support your baby's healthy emotional development. So the early months, or even the whole first year, is often an emotional time. And every family's experience is different. Some find this stage really joyful, some find it overwhelming, and many families find it both of those and a whole array of other emotions as well. Babies aren't able to manage big emotions or feelings on their own. They rely on us to help them feel safe and to help organize what they're feeling. And this is what we call co-regulation. So this isn't something extra that you need to do. It's something that's happening all the time in all the everyday moments when you are responding to your baby. Co-regulation basically means that your baby uses your calm to find their own. So your tone of voice, your body, your presence, all of this helps to organize their nervous system. Dr. Billy Garvey, you might have heard of, he's a pediatrician who works closely with families in Australia. He talks about how young children borrow our calm before they can find their own. And that's really what's happening in co-regulation. So regulation doesn't start within the child, it starts between you and through your relationship. Regulation develops through a child's relationships with the consistent adults in their life. So it doesn't just mean you and your partner, it might be any other significant adults that they spend a lot of time with. So that might be grandparents, aunts and uncles, or your early childhood educators. Every time you respond to your baby, you're contributing to their emotional development. So if you were to think about if your baby heard a loud noise and looked to you straight away, in that moment, they're checking in, is this safe? Your calm response, which might just be a soft expression or a steady voice, helps them organize that experience. And over time, these repeated moments are what build their capacity to regulate, but it starts with you. It can help to understand what's happening in the brain at this time. So Dr. Dan Siegel and Tina Payne-Bryson have done a lot of work helping make brain development more accessible for parents. They describe the brain as having two parts, the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain. So the downstairs brain is reactive. It is the primal emotional part that is active from birth, and it's driven by our instinctual need to get our needs met, and it's critical for our survival. The upstairs brain is the part that helps with our executive functioning skills. So things like reasoning, planning, and regulating. And this part is under construction in the first years of life and actually doesn't fully develop until a person's mid-20s. So in those first couple of years, the downstairs brain is definitely in control. And that means when babies feel something, it can be really intense. So this is why a baby can go from being really calm to crying, I'm trying to think of a different word for hysterically, but to crying really strongly very quickly. Their brain hasn't developed the ability to calm themselves without support yet. And even as adults, sometimes we can find ourselves overwhelmed by our own emotions. And Dan and Tina call this flipping our lid, which is when our downstairs brain takes over. And I'm sure you can all think of a moment where a strong emotion took over before you had a chance to think or reason. So if it can still happen to us with our more developed adult brains, it makes sense that it happens so often and so intensely for babies. They really need us to be there with them at these times. I think this image captures co-regulation really well. So sometimes a baby's emotions can feel a bit like a storm. When that powerful storm meets your calm as the adult, something shifts for them. You don't need to stop the storm. You help them feel safe within it. So we should aim to stay calm enough to help our child feel safe, even when things feel intense. When the adult is steady, it helps the baby to feel steady. And co-regulation doesn't need to be complicated. It can look as simple as slowing down your body, softening your voice, holding your child or being close to them, perhaps sitting alongside them with a hand gently on their back or their chest. Co-regulation can even be pausing and observing before responding. So sometimes waiting before jumping in can be really helpful as well, because taking a moment or two to observe and understand what they might be experiencing can make a big difference. And again, your presence matters even when you're not actively doing something. Crying is your baby's first language. And it's really important to know that babies don't cry to manipulate. They cry to communicate. So this might be to communicate hunger, tiredness, discomfort, overwhelm. It might be a need for connection, or crying can even be a way of releasing tension. It can feel really hard to hear your baby cry, and our instinct is often to make it stop as quickly as possible. But our role isn't always to stop the feeling or to fix it. Instead, our role is to help them feel safe while they're experiencing that emotion. And also to do our best to understand what's behind the feeling and to stay with them as they work through it. So crying is one of the most obvious ways babies communicate, but it isn't the only way. Babies also communicate through their bodies and behaviour to show us what they need. So things like turning away from something, reaching out, tensing up their muscles, all of these are ways they might communicate with us. And what we see on the outside is only part of the story. Underneath, there is a need that they're expressing. When we start to see behaviour as a form of communication, it can change how we respond. And sometimes you won't know exactly what your baby needs, and that's okay. What matters is that you stay with them. In Circle of Security, this is called being with. This idea of being with is at the heart of emotional development. So through your presence and attempts to respond, you're letting your baby know, I see you, I hear you, I'm here, even if I don't have the right answer. Being with can look really simple. It might be like getting down to their level, softening your facial expression, staying close. Sometimes just letting them know through your presence that you are there and you're not worried. And how you respond doesn't just help in the moment. Your responses shape how your baby's brain develops over time. At different points in the first year, you might notice your baby becoming more clingy or sensitive to separation. This is also a really normal part of development. As babies become more aware of the world, they also become more aware of you. Being as consistent and predictable as you can helps your baby feel safe and develop a strong sense of security. During these periods, saying goodbye can be especially difficult. So when leaving your child with a family member or at your early childhood setting, it can be really tempting to perhaps get them busy with some enticing toys and then slip away without them noticing. However, that can actually worsen your child's separation anxiety because they don't know if you're going to disappear without warning at any moment. And so they begin to develop a sense of distrust in the situation. So if you were to do that when you bring them to the early childhood centre, each time you come to the early childhood centre, there'd be knowing that you might disappear at any moment, so they'd be feeling a little bit more heightened and anxious about that. So while saying goodbye is difficult, it is really important. And over time, clear, predictable goodbyes will help your child learn that you always come back and that they are safe even when you are not there. As babies become more mobile, things shift again. So they can move away from you now, but they still need you to be responsive. You might notice more frustration, more determination, and even more emotional moments as they explore further and challenge their new skills. Co-regulation is still really important at this stage, and so is the idea of not immediately fixing things for them. So I'm going to give you an example of what this might look like. A baby is trying to climb onto a low platform and they begin to let out some noises of frustration. So this is an opportunity for me to pause and observe before jumping in. I would be looking at what their body language is telling me. Are they still calm enough to work through this and persevere towards their goal? Or have they passed their threshold into dysregulation? Are they looking to me for help? If they look to me, it might just be to check in and make sure that I'm seeing them. And in a moment like this, where they're frustrated, but they're not completely dysregulated, I might say something like, oh, I can see you're trying to climb up. It looks like it's really hard work. And then again, I watch and wait to see how they choose to continue. So do they return to their attempt? Do they move to something else? Do they come closer to me or reach their arms out? Whatever they do, I then respond to where they are in that moment. And how I respond might look completely different at another time of day. And this is why that pause to observe is so important before jumping in to fix it, to fix the situation. Because maybe right now they have that energy and capacity to keep challenging themselves. But at another time of day, perhaps just before their nap, they might not be able to cope in the same way. So if I responded both the same way in both situations, for example, by picking them up to stop the frustration, I wouldn't be responding to how they actually are in that moment, and I'd be taking away an opportunity for them to work through something for themselves. So frustration can be really uncomfortable to see, and of course, we don't want to see our child struggle. However, struggle is a really important part of learning, and frustration is another feeling that we want to support our children to work through. Trusting your baby is also part of emotional development. So babies from very early on begin to find small ways to settle themselves, and when we give them space to do that, we're honouring their competence. So you might see them turn away from something that is overstimulating them. You might notice them sucking on their fingers. Or if they're engaged in play, you might notice them put their head down for a moment or two to rest before refocusing on their activity. Again, we don't need to do everything for them. When we stay close and we offer responsive support, we are also mindful of giving them space when we can. So it is really about, I think observation is so important because we're really trying to tune into the baby and try and understand their perspective before coming to the rescue. But we are still really mindful of where those points are, where it is going into that dysregulated state where we do need to respond more quickly. So it is a little bit nuanced, and it is really to do with your knowledge of your child and your relationship together. And your baby is always learning from you. So they feel your calm. They also feel your tension. And this, of course, doesn't mean you have to be calm all the time. That's not possible. That's not realistic. But what I mean is sometimes slowing down, taking a breath, or grounding yourself can be really helpful. And how you respond helps shape how your baby understands their experience. So sometimes they'll look to you to see if something is safe, like in the example of the loud noise that I mentioned earlier on, and your response helps guide that. So a couple of examples of what this looks like in practice. And thinking back to that example of the baby climbing on the platform. If they stumble while climbing and end up on the floor, how I respond in that moment shapes how they process the experience. So if I was to rush over, scoop them up and hurriedly say, "Oh no, you're okay, you're okay," they're going to pick up on my urgency and stress, and they're likely to become more upset. So instead, I might pause and watch for a moment. I might see them take their own moment to assess the situation. Perhaps they might look around, take in where and how their body is now. They might even look to me to gauge my reaction, to see whether I think this is a safe situation. So in that case, I'd calmly say something like, oh, you stumbled, now you're on the floor. And again, then I watch and wait. Or maybe they're not okay. Maybe I might see them begin to tense their face and start to cry. And in that case, I still move closer with calm. So I slowly move closer. I offer them comfort in the way that I know works for them. I refrain from making assertions that they're okay. So I try not to say you're okay, because right now they're telling me actually they're not okay. I might say something like, oh, that really gave you a fright, or you didn't like falling like that. So still acknowledging their experience, and not, I guess, avoiding diminishing it. So I'm not trying to fix their feeling straight away, or I'm not trying to take away that emotion. I'm being present, I'm giving space, and being responsive to what they need in that moment. And through this, the baby learns that sometimes things happen and that I'll be there to support them through it. And in time, that will become their own mechanisms to get through those difficult feelings themselves. Another example is of a younger infant lying on the floor in a safe space where they've been playing. And they begin to grizzle. So again, instead of immediately picking them up, I take a moment to pause and observe. So I'm trying to understand what they might need. I'm asking myself, what is happening for them? Are they exploring their voice? Are they due for a feed? Are they tired? Are they uncomfortable? So I'm drawing on all my knowledge of what's been happening that day to assess the situation right now. And if I'm not sure, I probably will move close and get down to the floor alongside them and calmly think out loud, oh, I hear you grizzling. I'm trying to work out what you're telling me. You woke up not long ago and had some milk then. It looks like you might be uncomfortable. I'm going to feel your nappy to see if it's wet. And then I check. Yes, it looks like you need your nappy changed. Let's go and get you freshened up. And then I pick them up. So this way I'm responding to what they need rather than rather than an assumption of what they need. So I'm not jumping straight in to stop that feeling. By taking the moment to consider what's happening for them, I'm being much more responsive. And in those situations, often we might reach for a dummy or offer a feed or something else to quickly stop the grizzling. But this way of kind of working through what they might need and being more responsive actually over time supports the baby's own understanding of their needs and their bodily experiences as well. And of course, we don't always get it right. There will be moments where you feel unsure, exhausted, or overwhelmed, and that's okay. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to get it right every time. Sometimes there will be times where you actually do need to leave the room for a couple of minutes while your baby is upset to calm yourself. And that's also really important and a really good thing to do in those situations. What children need is actually enough moments of feeling safe, understood, and supported. And the good news is that research shows getting it right only 20% of the time is enough. So when you get it wrong or things don't go to plan, what actually matters is that you come back, that you reconnect, and you continue to try. So if it is a situation where you're just overwhelmed and you do need to go and take that safety breath or a couple of minutes away in a different room, coming back and trying once you've recentered yourself is what's really important. And good enough really is good enough. Emotional development is built in small, repeated moments that happen dozens of times every day. So the way that you respond, the way that you stay present, the way that you come back. Now, over time, these experiences build your baby's sense of safety and their ability to regulate. Your baby is learning what to expect from the world through you. And I think it's really important to reiterate this point that babies don't need us to take every feeling away. They need us to help them feel safe while they're feeling it. So thank you all for listening. In half an hour, of course, there's only so much we can cover. So if you would like to seek out some additional resources, these are some that I recommend. The first one here is Dr. Billy Garvey's book, 10 Things I Wish You Knew About Your Child's Mental Health, which is applicable for parents of children at any age. And Janet Lansbury has her Unruffled podcast and also her blog. And the podcast episodes are quite short, and the titles of them usually make it really easy to find something that meets what you're after as well. And then finally, we have The Whole Brain Child, which is one of Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson's books.